Greetings, everybody. This is going to be my two-part episode for this week on Joelum's album rankings. Reason being is because starting tomorrow, I'm going to be taking a 2-week sabbatical. I'm going to start with Dio, a band that was formed in 1982 by Ronnie James Dio after he had a falling out with Black Sabbath. When you're done watching this video, you can go back and watch my previous album rankings videos. The playlist is in the description box. Now, before I rank all of 10 Dio studio albums, I like to give you a back history of the man behind the band. See, Ronnie James Dio was born Ronald James Patanova on July 10th, 1942. He became known as Ronnie James Dio professionally. His musical career actually began in 1957 as part of the Vegas Kings, later known as Ronnie and the Ramblers. In 1967, he formed a rock band called Elf, which became a popular opening act for Deep Purple. In '75, Deep Purple guitarist Ritchie Blackmore founded a band called Rainbow, and he hired Dio as their lead singer. During his tenure, the band released 3 studio records. Dio quickly emerged as one of heavy rock's preeminent singers. In 1979, Dio replaced Ozzy Osbourne as Black Sabbath's lead singer, and has appeared on 3 studio albums with the band, all 3 of which met with success, which is 1980's Heaven and Hell, 1981's The Mob Rules, and 1992's Dehumanizer. In 1982, he was ousted from Black Sabbath and he formed his own band titled Dio, which itself had 2 albums that were certified platinum by the RIAA. Then in 2006, he founded his own band with Iommi called Heaven and Hell. But in 2009, he was diagnosed with stomach cancer and he died of the disease 6 months later. Ronnie James Dio was regarded as one of the greatest and most influential heavy metal singers of all time. He is known for popularizing the devil horn's hand gesture in metal culture and his medieval theme song lyrics. According to a version provided by the singer himself, the act derives directly from classic Italian apotropaic gesture, which his grandmother often displayed. Dio had a powerful, versatile vocal range and was capable of singing both hard rock and lighter ballads. He was awarded Metal Guru Award in a Classic Rock magazine in 2006. He was also named the Best Metal Singer at the Revolver Golden Gods in 2010 and ranked as the genre's best singer in 2013 by music journalist Sasha Jenkins. Now let's get on. In 10th place, and I don't even know why the fuck I even bought this album to begin with, but it's 1996's Angry Machines. This album was not commercially successful and vastly underperformed compared to earlier Dio albums. It would be the last to feature original drummer Vinny Appice. And it also featured a guitarist by the name of Tracy G, who I'm sure pretty much had worked on the previous Dio album Strange Highways, which I'll get to in a bit. But in any event, this was not the best Dio album of all Dio albums, to be honest. So, next. In 9th place is Dio's 10th and final studio album, Master of the Moon, released on August 30th of 2004 through Europe and SPV Steamhammer Records, and on September 7th, 2004 in the US throughout Sanctuary Records. The album marks the return of guitarist Craig Goldie, who had performed on Dream Evil back in '87 and Magica in 2000. It also features Jeff Pilson on bass, Simon Wright on drums, and Scott Warren on keyboards. The songs that really actually stood out were the Japanese edition bonus track of Prisoner of Paradise, and One More for the Road, Master of the Moon, and The Man Who Would Be King, along with Death by Love. This is one hell of a way for a Dio album to go out, even though it made it to number 13 on the Rock and Metal Albums chart in the UK, number 97 in Scotland, number 62 in Germany. Let's see. Didn't even sell much, so what the hell. What a way to go out, Ronnie, with your band, with Master of the Moon. Next. In 8th place is Killing the Dragon, released on May 21st, 2002 through Spitfire Records, produced by Ronnie James Dio himself. As far as this album goes, songs like Push and Killing the Dragon, Comes the Spider were all the standout tracks. It was much, much better than Angry Machines or Magica. It reached number 199 on the Billboard 200, and on the independent chart, it made it to number 18. While it reached higher in the UK album charts, in the indies, it was like at number 27, and the rock and metal albums chart, it was like at number 23. So, not bad, to be honest. Next. In seventh place is Magica, a concept album released on March 21st, 2000. Now, there's not much to know about it, but I've heard a story that the album was originally planned to be a first part of a trilogy of concept albums, shortly before beginning his tour with Heaven and Hell. Ronnie announced his intention to start Magica 2 and 3 after the tour's end, but he died shortly after because of stomach cancer on May 16th, 2010. The only song released from Magica 2 and 3 was titled Electra. Anyways, this album marked the return of Craig Goldie. He would later perform on Master of the Moon, but his previous Dio effort before that was Dream Evil in 1987. I don't think any of these songs actually stood out as far as the concept album of Magic being concerned, but nonetheless, it was a start to go back in the creative direction that Dio was more comfortable in, other than the stuff that he put out with Angry Machines. Next. In sixth place is Lock Up the Wolves, released on May 15th, 1990, produced by Tony Platt and Ronnie himself. The album featured a whole different lineup of Dio, with himself being the only member, and it featured Rowan Robinson, who was like 18 years old at the time, Jens Johansson, who was a keyboardist from Sweden, Teddy Cook, who was a bassist, and Simon Wright, who was a British drummer who was best known for his work in AC/DC with albums such as Lock Up, Not Fly on the Wall, and Blow Up Your Video. The album marked a drop-off in Dio's popularity, charting lower than the previous four records. The LA Times stated in September of 1990 that the album died a quick death on the charts, and half-empty houses are not uncommon on the ongoing tour. Wow, that had a sting. That led to Dio having to disband when Ronnie James Dio ended up joining Black Sabbath in 1991 to record Dehumanizer in 92. Next. In fifth place is Strange Highways. This album was released on the European market in October of 93, but it was released in the US in 1994. After a short-lived reunion with Black Sabbath for the recording of Dehumanizer and a subsequent tour, Ronnie James Dio and Vinny Appice returned to Dio's solo group, hiring Tracy G as the new guitarist and Jimmy Bain as bassist. He was able to make a return to the band, but was soon sacked and replaced by Dawkins' Jeff Pilson. Hollywood Black was demoed by Black Sabbath during the Dehumanizer sessions. Whether it was the same, he doesn't know. I only remarked of Dio's version before hearing it. Could be the same lyrics, probably is. I wouldn't think he would use the same music. Whatever. The songs that actually stood out were Strange Highways, Hollywood Black, Evolution, and Jesus, Mary, and the Holy Ghost. Next. In fourth place is Dream Evil, released in July of 1987. The album features former Rough Cut members Craig Goldie and Claude Schnell, and includes the singles All the Fools Sailed Away and I Could Have Been a Dreamer. I also like the title track and Sunset Superman. Since its release, Dream Evil had made it to number 43 on the Billboard 200. Failed to go gold and platinum. Why the hell? But it reached number 8 in the UK, so I can't complain too much about that, since Dio was over in the UK anyways. Next. In third place is Sacred Heart, released in August of 1985. Sacred Heart peaked at the number 29th position on the Billboard 200. The standout tracks were Sacred Heart, King of Rock and Roll Children, and Hungry for Heaven, and It Has Gone Gold. It clocks in at 38 minutes, which happens to be the band's shortest album to date. Sacred Heart, the single, is actually my favorite Dio song of all time, in all honesty. So, I don't know about the rest of the album, so you have to fight it out for yourself if you like Sacred Heart or not. Next. In second place is The Last in Line, released on the 2nd of July in 1984. The Last in Line had featured Claude Schnell on keyboards. It became the band's highest charting album in both the UK and the US, respectively, reaching numbers 4 and 23, respectively. Sacred Heart would reach number 4 in the UK as well, as I just mentioned. It made it to platinum status in the United States. The standout tracks were like Mystery, We Rock, and The Last in Line. I also like the song Egypt, The Chains Are On, which is actually the album closer, so as far as I'm concerned, it deserves to be in second place. Which leads me to, and at number 1, was it anybody's guess that it would be the double platinum selling debut of Holy Diver, released on May the 25th, 1983. The album was acclaimed by the music press as the band's most successful effort, and it's been hailed by critics as Dio's best work and as a classic staple in the heavy metal genre. Like I said, it went double platinum, and it charted at number 56 on the Billboard 200. It reached number 13 in the UK. As far as I'm concerned, Holy Diver deserves to be in the top spot because of the fact that it was Dio's greatest piece of work outside of bands that he was in like Rainbow and Black Sabbath. The album art is illustrated by Randy Barrett, and it features the band's mascot Murray, who was a demonic creature, pulling or wiping a snapped metal chain, and a man wearing a Catholic priest attire flailing and splashing around in a body of water. That could have been like blasphemous as far as I'm concerned, so who are we to judge a book by its cover? Here's a quick recap of the Dio albums I ranked. Now, in later years after Dio had died, there were two succeeding bands, two groups of former members of Dio called Dio Disciples, which current members are Craig Goldie, Simon Wright, Scott Warren, Ripper Owens, Bjorn Englund, Oni Logan, and Mark Bowles, who were part of the group. Former members were like Rudy Sarzo, Toby Jepson, and James Lomenzo. Doro Pesch was a touring member at the time on lead vocals, as Vinny Appice was a touring member on drums, so what the fuck. And the last in line, which the current members are Vinny Appice, Vivian Campbell of Def Leppard, Andrew Freeman, who recently was a lead singer of Great White and also sung for Lynch Mob, and a journeyman bassist called Phil Soussan. Former members included keyboardists like Claude Schnell, Eric Nolander, and bassist Jimmy Bain, who had died in 2016, so shit happens. But at least they're keeping Dio's legacy alive, so I can't complain too much about that.
Don't you believe in